All right, welcome back to the Net to Net podcast. This is your host, Skelt. I'm here today with an NFL podcast. Season's finally over. We saw the Eagles beat the Chiefs, which I know a lot of people are happy about. They didn't want to see that three-peat. But now it's the offseason. Now we can talk about the draft. We can talk about free agency. We can talk about what teams need to do to make a case for them to be a legitimate title contender. And today, I know I've been putting it out for a while, but today I got my first mock draft. I can't wait to share with you and my thoughts about it. So let's dive in. All right. Starting with the Tennessee Titans, there is a lot of talks about what the Titans are going to do. The Titans have a lot of options. They have the first over, but they need a quarterback. Or do they rock with Will Levis? Does Brian Callahan give Will Levis a chance? My thing is, you got a quarterback last year. Now, Will Levis, he had a great, tremendous college at Kentucky, but he really didn't have the weapons outside of Tony Pollard, who could barely stay healthy. You had the likes of Nikhil Westbrook and Traylon Burks, who you're going from A.J. Brown and Calvin Ridley to Calvin Ridley and Traylon Burks and Nikhil Westbrook. Yes, you got Tyler Boyd, but he's not the same Tyler Boyd that he was like 4 years ago in Cincinnati. Now, here's the decision. Do you take a generational talent and Travis Hunter, or do you trade it back? Or do you take a quarterback? In my opinion, I think that you give Will Levis one more shot, but give him some weapons. And the first overall pick has to be one of the generational talent. And he can play both sides. I was a fan of him because what he did, his skills wise. Did I think he was the best receiver in the country? No. Did I think he was the best cornerback in the country? No. Do I think he's an all around generational talent? Yes. I think he's special. You don't really pass up an opportunity like this. So I say take Travis Hunter with the first overall pick for the Tennessee Titans. Now here's a big interesting. Cleveland Browns. They need a quarterback. They need a lot of things. Now with the news of Miles Garrett wanting to be traded, that changes everything. And you have a freak athlete in Abdul Carter, who, Penn State, they produce lots of good edge rushers, from the Micah Parsons to the LeVar Arringtons to all those good big edge rushers. Abdul Carter had a great season again. 2 forced fumbles, 12 sacks, 43 tackles. Played a lot of snaps. He is a freak. I think he could be better than Micah Parsons if he kind of continues that trajectory. And I know even Micah Parsons said that Abdul Carter was better in college than when Micah was there. I don't think that the Browns, but I know the Browns like Shedeur Sanders. He's the number one quarterback. Do you go with Abdul or do you go with Shedeur? For me personally, I don't think you can. I know with Deshaun Watson's contract, it's kind of untradeable. And after that season he had last year and getting injured during this offseason, I don't think he's going to play for a while. But do you really want to throw Shedeur Sanders to the Wolves? We've seen what the Browns have done when drafting a rookie quarterback and throwing him to the Wolves. We saw it with Johnny Manziel. We saw it with Brandon Weeden. I think here, you don't pass up on a talent like Abdul Carter, and I think they take Abdul Carter. That's my opinion. I think you're gonna have to replace that Miles Garrett if they do trade him, but it's all up to them. He does have a few years left on his contract, so it will be up to Cleveland to find that trade partner. Now, going to the New York Giants, they need a quarterback. And I think this is pretty obvious. I think they take the best quarterback available. In my opinion, that is Cam Ward. You get Malik Neighbors a quarterback. You get a franchise quarterback that they haven't had since Eli Manning. Yes, Daniel Jones was supposed to be that, but we've seen what Daniel Jones has done in this league. He is no longer a franchise quarterback. He is no longer a face of a franchise. It's time to pivot to find the real face of the franchise, and I think that's Cam Ward. We saw what he did, about 4,000 yards at Miami. We've seen what he's done every year. He's gotten better. Cam Ward has to be in that conversation for New York starting. Now switching gears to New England, I really liked what they did over in New England. They end up hiring Mike Vrabel. They're bringing back Josh McDaniels for a third time to help develop Drake May. We've seen what he did with Mac Jones. We saw what he did with Tom Brady. We saw what he did with multiple quarterbacks in this league. I like what they have with Drake May. They do need skill positions. They also do need offensive line, which Calvin Banks is not a bad shout to go. But I think in this case, at number 4 pick, you go get a stud receiver in Tyrod McMillan out of Arizona. He is a weapon that you can give Drake May a chance to kind of secure yourself a big-time weapon that they haven't had since losing Jacoby Myers in free agency a few years back. Since a Wes Welker, a Randy Moss, when they've had in the past. They haven't had a huge-time weapon in a long time. Yes, I know they need offensive line, but I think give Drake May some help. Give him some skill positions. Now, going to Jacksonville, I think this is pretty obvious. I think they go take out the best tackle in the draft, Calvin Banks. Give Trevor Lawrence protection. You just traded at the deadline this season. You traded away Cam Robinson to Minnesota. Great left tackle. You need to replace him on that offensive line. That offensive line isn't getting any younger. A lot of the players are older. Like you see, interior, Brandon Scherf is very old. You don't have that prime left tackle anymore. So go out and get some protection for Trevor Lawrence. Now going to the number 6 pick in the draft, I think pretty much guaranteed 6 and 7 are going to be quarterbacks off the board. I think it will be Shedeur Sanders going to Oakland. I think that's a no-brainer. They need a quarterback. They had a rental with Gardner Minshew, Desmond Ridder. I don't think Aiden O'Connell is the answer. We've seen what the quarterbacks have been without having a quarterback. I think they go out and get Shedeur. I'm not going to New York. They now pivoting. They do need a quarterback with due to saying they are going to part with Aaron Rodgers. I think that's a smart decision. Start with Aaron Glenn, your new coach. Start fresh. He's very defensive minded. I think he's going to help that defense. Let's get some offense going. They do need a quarterback, and I do like the Jackson Dart kind of Jalen Milrose area. At 7 is very stretching that. I think you have to think about the offensive line. Morgan Moses, Tyron Smith, those guys are upwards of 30. They ain't getting any younger. You have the option to go out and get a Will Campbell. I think Will Campbell on the offensive line, he can play a left tackle, he can play right tackle. He's a big, powerful guy out of LSU. A lot of people have him as the number 1. I have him as my number 2, even maybe number 3, depending on how you look at Josh Simmons and Donovan Jackson, and Josh Carley. But I have him at number 2. It's between him and Calvin Banks. I like Will Campbell. I like what I saw. His footwork, his being able to block. Usually matched up against some of the premier edge rushers in that SEC and the likes of James Pierce, Mikael Williams, Javon Walker. So I like him here. I think whoever you bring in the quarterback, I think you can grab one in the second round, is perfect for New York to give him that franchise left tackle. We saw that this year with Joe, or right tackle, wherever you want to play him. We saw that with Joe Alt, with the Chargers not overthinking it. Should I go Malik Neighbors? Should I go Rome Odunze? But they went smart. They went tactical, and they went with Joe Alt, and look what Joe Alt did. Great year for Joe Alt. Carolina Panthers. They're on the clock next. They need a decent amount of help. I think they do need defensive end help, defensive line, linebacker, hybrid kind of thing. But I also think they need to get Bryce Young some weapons. And I think with kind of with the 8th pick, you go out and get a stud receiver and Luther Burton. I think Luther Burton fits the Carolina Panthers. They need that receiver. They really haven't had that receiver since really Steve Smith. Even go back DJ Moore. Yes, Luther Burton did have a down year at Mizzou. He didn't have the same numbers he did 2 years ago. This season they beat Ohio State in the bowl game. I just think Missouri just had not the best year, but I think you get Bryce Young a weapon that he can go up and throw to. And the fact that they don't really have that. They lost their big aerial threat, Jonathan Mingo. Really didn't live up to the hype. Adam Thielen's getting older. You really don't have that number one receiver in Carolina. And I think Bryce Young kind of showed that he can be that number one quarterback. But he didn't really have the weapons last year, but he made the most of it, getting benched, coming back, and having a great end to the season, I think. Really showed Bryce Young's character and showed that he can be the franchise quarterback that Carolina wanted him to be when they drafted him with the number one overall pick. Now going to number 8 with New Orleans. Kellen Moore is now the new coach. Are they going to bring back Alvin Kamara? That's going to be a huge question in the offseason if they end up re-signing him. I know there was talks about trading him at the deadline. You can go get a running back in this class. I would say that the offensive line, the offensive line, the running backs, and the defense is very deep. This running back class is very deep. So, but the one thing that they do need to look at, one is finding a replacement for Cam Jordan, because he is getting older. Who knows how much longer. Looking at that middle linebacker position for Demario Davis and replacing Marshawn Lattimore. And probably the easiest pick is going Will Johnson out of Michigan. He is the number one cornerback in my board. Even though he barely played this year, it's between him and Benjamin Morrison, but they both didn't really play this year. Will Johnson just gives me the edge. We saw what he was at Michigan for 3+ years. He was unstoppable. People didn't really want to throw his way. They always threw it to when Mike Santrell was there, or to just the opposite side. They really didn't want to throw at Will Johnson because he was a shutdown corner. And the same thing is with like the Benjamin Morrisons and the Jabbar Muhammad's. They really don't like to throw that way. So getting Will Johnson kind of answers your question about who's replacing Marshawn Lattimore. Yes, you have Paulson Adebo. You have Kool-Aid McGinstry, who you drafted last year. You have Avante Taylor. So it's a good role players, but you don't have that kind of like main stud corner like they did with Marshawn Lattimore. So I do like that pick with Will Johnson. Now going to Chicago, they're very interesting. You could go out and get a Genti. You could go get some more offensive line help because their offensive line, outside their offensive line, their guard play was kind of iffy. But they could use defensive end help, or edge. I like what there's a lot available in the edge. You got the James Pierce, Jawan Walkers, Mikael Williams. Particularly like Jawan Jelon Walker a little bit more than Mikael Williams and James Pierce because he is kind of that hybrid that can play in both the 3-4 and the 4-3 defense. He can stand up as a linebacker. He can get down in the DN role. I just think they need more pressure on the quarterback, and going Jelon Walker is not a bad idea. Now, San Francisco here, they have a lot to do. Are they going to make a trade for Miles Garrett? Can they even make that try to trade? Deebo Samuels has been granted to seek a trade or he could be released before the first post new league to avoid that cap hit. If they do end up doing that receiver, I think they go out and get a receiver. There's a lot of trend of Matthew Golden being an option, or Emeka Mbuka, or a Trey Harris, or Isaiah Bond. But like I said, this receiving class is not that deep, so there is a chance that they go in and kind of get this position out in free agency. So then they can focus on the offensive line, and I think they go out and get a Josh Simmons. Yes, Josh Simmons was injured most of the season. I'm having season-ending injury, but I do like the pickup. He is good. He's very big. He's physical at the line. When you saw him, he was very good at protecting his quarterback. He can play. He's probably going to play left tackle, and that's what the San Francisco 49ers need. They need to get younger. The offensive line, Trent Williams, is not getting any younger. We saw that kind of flash from him throughout the season of his regression. Now, Dallas Cowboys. Going and getting Brian Schottenheimer was very interesting to me because I don't know how he was really a candidate, but what they need is running back. They need that Zeke replacement that they haven't really found for a while. I think losing Tony Pollard was a huge mistake for them, but he's, I think, been linked to them for a while now, and I just think it's a perfect match. Ashton Jeanty, we're talking about one of the best running backs in college football. We talk about what he did at Boise State. He would be perfect. I know if he was there for Denver, if he falls to Denver, that would be kind of awesome because I would love to see him and Bo Nix together, but I just think Dallas Cowboys, they can't mess it up here, and they need to get a good running back that can play all downs. Yes, like I said, this running back class is pretty heavy and deep, but Jeanty could be one of the best running backs that we've seen come out of the draft in a while. I go Jeanty. I don't pass up on him. Now, going to Miami. They need interior help. Not so much ulterior. Yes, their needs are offensive line in general due to the fact that Teron Armstead is older now. They don't really have that they kind of have that place in Patrick Paul. They did just release Raheem Mostert, so that really means that they're kind of relying on Devin Achane and Jalen Wright. Like I said, they do have Patrick Paul, who could maybe fill in for that Teron Armstead. In the future, they did go out and get Chomp Robinson in the draft last year, which was a great pickup. Now, focusing, they have that skill position. They kind of found that tight end in Jonnu Smith. So they really don't need to go out and get kind of that skill position. I think it's just shoring up the offensive line. And we talk about Josh Connerly. We're talking about Cameron Williams, Emory Jones. We're talking about Amon Mbua. And then on the inside, I think this is where the first interior guard gets taken, and I think it's Tyler Booker. I think Tyler Booker kind of sets himself above everybody else as an interior guard. What we saw at Bama, kind of lackluster season for Bama, but we saw that protection that Jalen Milrose got, and it was because of the likes of Booker. protecting him in the inside against those big, huge defensive tackles in the SEC. I like him a lot. I think he's a plug and play starter. They don't really have that kind of guard that they need right now. They don't really have it. They could go offensive tackle in, like I said, in like a Connor Williams and a Josh Connerly, but I think it just depends. Now for tight end or for the Indianapolis Colts, I think right here you go out and get a tight end. I think that's really what you're missing for the Indianapolis Colts. They have a great offense line, one of probably the best offensive lines in the NFL. You got Quentin Nelson, you got Brandon Smith, you got Ryan Kelly. That offensive line is set. They got a few more good years. You got the young quarterback in Anthony Richardson. He definitely played a lot better after that benching. You don't really have that running back that you lost you have that running back. Sorry, with Jonathan Taylor. You might need to get a second running back due to the fact that Jonathan Taylor can't stay healthy sometimes. You have the receiving cores in Michael Pittman. They have it in Josh Downs. So they're kind of set there at their receiving core. Now, their biggest focus would be tight ends because they don't really have a tight end that can really, well, they haven't had a good tight end in a while. And that's going all the way back to like the Eric Ebron and the Dallas Clark. Right now, the only tight ends on the roster right now are Will Mallory, Jelani Woods, and with what we saw out of Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren. I know a lot of people think that Colston Loveland is the number one tight end over Tyler Warren. Some people have Tyler Warren over Colston Loveland. They're both kind of on teams that really didn't utilize the receiving core. They really utilized their tight ends. You got Harold Fannin, who can come in the later rounds, but I think Tyler Warren right now is the best tight end in the class. I think he's slightly better than Colston Loveland. Yes, Colston Loveland was more productive during his college days at Michigan, but I just think Tyler Warren is someone you don't want to pass up. Talking about switching now to the Atlanta Falcons, they, I think, are now moving on for Kirk Cousins. I think everybody knows that now. Now, I think their biggest thing is shoring up that defensive line. I think, honestly, you go best player available. You go get it's either between defensive end and safety. You got you got Jonathan Simmons on a 1-year deal. I don't know if they'll be able to bring him back. Your defensive ends aren't getting younger. You have Eddie Goldman. You have Grady Jarrett. They are all older. They are 31 plus. So go out and get a Mason Graham. He was the best defensive tackle in college football last year. I loved his run stop game. He was very good in the run game. He could get pressure to the quarterback when needed. We saw what he did over the last 2 years, especially in those big games at the Ohio State games and the national championship game. Big plays from Mason Graham. He's a talent that you should not overlook. Now going to Arizona, you have Mikael Williams who's available. I like Mikael Williams, but I think James Pierce can play that hybrid role as a linebacker, edge rusher that the Cardinals need. The Cardinals desperately needs that. They kind of missed on the last few drafts to kind of focusing on the offensive side, getting Kyler Murray more help. Yes, Mikael Walker could be there. I'm not a huge fan of Mikael Walker. I just didn't like what I saw from his tapes. But you have BJ Ojolari. He he's in and out. You don't really know what you're going to get. You got Darius Robinson last year, who I think was a tremendous pickup, underrated. You get him on the other side of Blah Nickel, and then you get James Pierce. He can, like I said, can either line up on that 3-4 defense that they run as a linebacker or as a D end. I like James Pierce's physicality. I like what he did at Tennessee. Yes, the numbers weren't there. as it was in the past. We're talking about, yes, he had 7.5 sacks this season. It's a down year from what he had last year at 9.5. Also, but the total tackles were up, the solo tackles, the assists were up. Not as much forced fumbles, but I think what you're getting out of him, I think he's more NFL ready than Mikael Williams. Yes, Mikael Williams had a great season. Why he's being looked at for a top pick. The sacks weren't there. Yes, he had more sacks this year, but he only had 5. So I don't think he's ready. I think he needs more time to develop. It's one of more of those like Trayvon Walkers. He had one really good year, kind of decent 2 years, but James Pierce has had consistent season after season for a couple years now at Tennessee. I just like his physicality there. It'll be interesting. Now we're up to pick 17 at my Cincinnati Bengals. They have a lot of options to go. Do they go? And I think this really comes down to free agency. How does this play? Do they go? What they do with T. Higgins? What they do with Trey Hendricks? Do they end up trading him? I know there's rumors to be traded to San Francisco, trading him to Denver. There are all these things that the Bengals could do. We still need offensive line help. Trent Brown isn't getting any younger. Orlando Brown, we saw inconsistencies from him. Amarius Mims had promise, but can he stay healthy? The interior, Colson Volson, Ted Karras. The offensive line is a lot older. We do need to look to get younger, but we also need to look at some of our skill positions. Jamar Chase is in the final year of his rookie deal trying to get a new contract. T. Higgins could be gone soon. Do we look at receivers? Do we look at defensive ends? Do we look at Walter Nolan? I like Walter Nolan a lot. I like him. He gives me a lot of comps to the great Geno Atkins. Geno Atkins is probably going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Not first ballot Hall of Famer, but he will be a Hall of Famer one day. I go Walter Nolan's. I think you need to kind of assure your defensive line. I do like Derek Harmon. Derek Harmon's out there. You could wait till the second round to go get like a Derek Harmon or a Keith Grant or a Tyreek Williams and kind of go get that edge rusher. So you do have like the Mel Williams out there and Shamar Stewart. It is very interesting to see kind of what Cincinnati does with their picks. I particularly think that if you go out and get someone like that, then you're going to have to upgrade. And I don't think this free agency on the defensive class is got great. So for me personally, I would go out and get like a Walter Nolan. I think Walter Nolan fits the bill there. And I think that's perfect. Now, Seattle, they need offensive help to help kind of protect Geno Smith. We saw a lot of that last year. Geno Smith not having the same protection that he had and his season that he was really good. I think that right now, though, you go get Mikael Williams. I think he falls a little bit to pick 18, but you get him. You took Byron Murphy last year. I think that's a perfect pick for him. So I like that pick there. Now, with Tampa Bay, you need edge. You haven't had that. Again, you haven't had that huge edge rush for a while since Shaq Barrett, since losing Shaq Barrett, since losing JPP. But you also need to think about the receiving core. You have a older Mike Williams. You have an older Chris Godwin coming off of ACL surgery, who's also a free agent. You don't know if he'll be back. This is where you could go. Do I think that going out and getting it? But like again, as edge rushers, you have Shamar Stewart, Nicker, and Sorton, Mike Green. Mike Green has kind of risen up the boards, a lot of people's boards. I'm a huge fan of Mike Green. I do like him, but also you also do think about the defensive tackle with Vita Vea. He is 33 years old. So I think this could go either way. I do like Mike Green out of Marshall. Had a really good season. 17 sacks, leading the, I believe he led college football with the most sacks this year. Sophomore coming out of Marshall. I think this is a great pick for around this time. But for me personally, I think that they need to look at replacing Vita Vea soon. And I think taking Derek Harmon is a kind of a stretch. I know it's going to be, people don't highly rate Derek Harmon, but what he did at Oregon, I think, was a phenomenal. Denver's up next. Denver, I think right here, this is a good chance to take Colson Loveland. Or it could be running backs. Colson Loveland, they do need tight end help, but I know that most sources said that Javonte Williams will not be coming back. He had a very down year, to say the least, and what they wanted to hope for him. So going out and getting a running back, I think this might be a chance that 2 running backs go in the first round. We haven't seen this in a very long time. I do think that this is an opportunity for Denver to go out and get a running back. Like I've been saying, this running back class is deep. I think, and hear me out, I think they go get Mike Green. I think Mike Green fits them and what they need as an edge. That means you can relieve Nick Benito, who kind of plays that hybrid Mike linebacker, sub linebacker, and can also rush the passer. Denver could be in for him. You could go get a Mike Green. Like I said, he is one of the best edge rushers in the country. He led this league in sacks. You have Jack Sawyer out there. You have Nick Surton. You have Shamar Stewart. There is so many options that they could go do it with these. Now, you did take Audric Estime last year. You could go get, like I said, a tight end. Colson Loveland is out there. I think Colson Loveland kind of fits everything. Or Harold Fannin. I do like Harold Fannin. He broke pretty much almost every record for a tight end in college football. I'm leaning toward Colson Loveland, though, because he's been so productive throughout his 4 years at college. Colson Loveland. Now, here with Pittsburgh, I think this is the most obvious choice of the draft. You go out and draft Mecca Mbuka, most NFL-ready receiver. I think he fits the bill there. That fits them perfectly. Now, they need that second receiver. Will they go out and get someone in the draft or in free agency? Yeah, probably. You always need 3 good receivers. Right now they have 1, and there's a chance that George Pickens gets traded. Right now, the question is the quarterback situation. Yes, I think they could have drafted the quarterback, but again, you could wait till the second round. You have the likes of Jackson Dart, Jalen Miller. In the third round, you have a Will Howard, Dylan Gabriel, Quinn Ewers, who are all projected in that area to go get. Again, this quarterback class isn't as deep as it has been in the past or will be next year. I think the next year's class, the likes of Drew Aller, Grant Nussmeier, Nico Iamaleava, just to name a few, Dante Moore, that class next year is going to be way better than this class. Going to the Chargers, I think you need to think about taking an edge rusher because Khalil Mack is getting older. Joey Bosa is a prime candidate to get cut or traded this season. I think you take Shamar Stewart. Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, 2-headed monster with him and Nick Scorton. I think I prefer Shamar Stewart over him a little bit just because Shamar Stewart, you got more from him. And if you watch the tape, they really kind of, once they got Nick Scorton over there in the transfer portal last year, you really saw Shamar Stewart kind of not being that main focal point. He was very good. He had 10 sacks. He's been very good throughout his career at Texas A&M, and everybody knows I have a soft spot for Texas A&M, I just like what he brings to the table. And Shamar Stewart, sorry. He, I think, is more NFL ready than, well, I wouldn't say more NFL ready. I would just say what he is. Yes, he hasn't had the sack. The sacks aren't there. Let's just say that. The sacks aren't there. It didn't help that Nick Skirton was there. But if you look at it, a lot of the attention was around Nick because of his presence to get to the pass rusher. 5 sacks, 10 sacks over the last few years. Nick Certain, but Shamar Stewart, he got pressure to the quarterback, and that's why I like that option there. He had a lot of quarterback pressures. He got to the quarterback a lot better. Yes, he didn't get the sacks, but he was able to disrupt the quarterback, get him to step up in the pocket to have his teammates get to the sacks, or his having the quarterback throw it away, or throwing it, getting rid of the ball quick because of that pressure that D line that Texas A&M defense had. And Mike Elko, fantastic job what he did in his first season in Texas A&M. Yes, it's not what they wanted. They wanted to be in the playoffs, but they competed throughout, even with kind of switching between their quarterbacks. Connor Weigman, who's no longer there, and Jalen Reed, or Malik Reed, sorry, the true freshman. Now, switching to Green Bay, there's a lot of stuff that could happen with Green Bay. They do need edge rushers. We saw over the last few years getting rid of the likes of Preston Smith and Darius Smith. Kenny Clark's not getting any younger. Rashawn Gary, we haven't really seen that production since his first 2 years in the league. Jair Alexander is primed to be released or traded at the first post to avoid cap. Now, if they do end up getting rid of Jerry Alexander, I think Benjamin Morrison, right here out of Notre Dame, fits the bill. Yes, we haven't seen him play what he's done in the last few years, or we haven't seen that production last year because he really didn't play. But if you go back to the tapes previous year, in 2023, he was one of the best cornerbacks in the country. Why he was, I believe, he won the cornerback of the year that year. Forget what the award's called, but he was pretty much an unbelievable cornerback. Him and Will Johnson, I know, always kind of. So the Bendernick Award, he won that. He also won the Jim Thorpe Award. Or sorry, he was a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award. He didn't win it, but he was also the Bendicott. He was up there for a lot of those awards. Between him and Will Johnson, it was always him. I think they are able to. Those two will be fantastic cornerbacks in the league one day. Yes, Jahadi Barnes, who had a great strong season out of Texas, but I just think Benjamin Morrison kind of does it for them. Going to Minnesota, they need a lot of help, either on the back end for Harrison Smith replacement because he is getting older. You saw a lot from Jonathan Grenard. You saw a lot from Dallas Turner, who had a very good, successful rookie season. Now the question is, with quarterbacks, it's not more of drafting a quarterback; it's more of who's going to be the quarterback of the future. Are they going to bring back Sam Darnold? Are they going to bring back they going to rock with JJ McCarthy? They do have two great receivers in Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. Aaron Jones could come back, could re-sign Aaron Jones. Like I said, they could go get get a running back, but I like what they have at edge rush. Now, defensive line is a hit or miss. They don't really have a ton. This is when you go out and get a Mike Green, a Kenneth Grant. You could go Malik Stark, who could fall in this range. I know that recommended mine is going offensive tackle. Go and get Armand Boo, go and get Donovan Jackson, but I like their offensive line. You have Bradbury, you have Christian Donaldson, you have Brian O'Neill. Can get the most out of Ed Ingram? Are they going to bring back a Cam Robinson, who they traded for? Are they going to bring back Dan Freeney? Yes, you're losing Jonathan Ballard, who had a solid season. Like I said, you are losing Aaron Jones. So I would probably go, or you can go cornerback. They are losing a few cornerbacks in Byron Murphy, Fabian Monroe, Shaq Griffin, Stephon Gilmore. I think right here you go Jahad Barn, cornerback out of Texas, kind of get your pillars because you did draft a good cornerback in Kyrie Jackson last year, but unfortunately rest in peace, the late Kyrie Jackson, kind of need a sure thing that cornerback room. With the Houston Texans being at 25, they need help. At the receiving core, they need help. Interior, they need help. Getting another edge rusher. I like them going out and getting someone to help. I think they could get a receiver in the free agency because right now the only healthy, you're not bringing back Stephon Diggs most likely. Tank Dell is going to be out for a while, so I think they can go get a receiver in free agency. This receiving core is deep with T. Higgins, Devontae Adams, if he's released, Chris Godwin, Tyler Boyd, DeAndre Hopkins. They have a ton. There's a ton of receivers out there that you could go get for a kind of a bridge gap for next year. I like them going out and getting a defensive end, and I think Mike Green fits the bill to pair up on the other side of Will Anderson. Going to the Los Angeles Rams. Question is at quarterback. This is when I think quarterback will come off the board, another quarterback. And I think they're looking to get a quarterback if Matthew Stafford doesn't come back. They also need offensive line help, which I like Josh Connerly here. I like Cameron Williams. But I think it depends on if they end up moving on from Matthew Stafford, which right now, maybe. So once they do that, then I think my next mock draft will be different, but I'm going Josh Connerly right here. Baltimore, they just need offensive line help. They need cornerbacks that pair up with Marlon Humphreys. I think they also need receivers, which I think right here, Matthew Golden fits them. I think give pressure off of Zay Flowers, give him another running mate alongside Rashad Bateman. Matthew Golden fits Bill. We saw great flashes from him and out of Texas. Isaiah Bond was also a good choice up here, but I think he'll be there in the later rounds. So it'll be interesting to see. Lamar needs the help, and we saw a lot from Zay Flowers, and he couldn't stay healthy towards the end of the season. I think that was just the overproduction, the overwork that Baltimore used. With Detroit, defense. They had a lot of injuries on defense. I like Nick Scorton right here going to Detroit because Aiden Hutchinson probably won't be back to start the season, and they need someone to plug and play. They re-signed Darius Smith, but again, he's older. Who knows how much longer he has? So it'll be interesting to see. With Washington Commanders, I'm going safety. Take best available. Malik Stark, he fell pretty much to 29. There's a chance that he can go anywhere from 10 to 30. That's a huge gap. I like him kind of get better at the defensive. At the safety position, you lost Carmen Curls a few years ago. You have Derek Forrest. So you do need safety and back end help. You got Marshawn Lattimore who kind of upgrades your quarterback position, but you still need that safety play back there. And I think Malik Stark, what we saw out of Georgia the last few years, pretty much helps. With Buffalo, you need linebackers. I think you need a running mate for or you could go linebackers for a running mate with Matt Milano. You haven't had that since Tremaine Edmonds, but I do like defensive ends here, and I'm leaning towards Jack Sawyer. Jack Sawyer had a tremendous season at Ohio State. I think with him coming into pressure, I think he would be perfect for the aspect of you need someone to get to the quarterback. You need a Von Miller replacement. You need someone to help Ed Oliver and Gregory Rousseau on the other side. Jack Sawyer can get to that pressure. Yes, the sacks weren't there because you had so many good pass rushers at Ohio State. Jack Sawyer can do the dirty work. So I like this pick here. With the 31st overall pick, I like Donovan Jackson to Kansas City. There's a potential that Trey Smith leaves in free agency, so you need to replace that guard position. Donovan Jackson can slide in and play tackle, and he can play guard. I like the picks there. Let's see what happens there. But yeah, I think right there is a plug and play starter day one. Donovan Jackson, we saw what he can do, and it's better than having a Wayne Morris or you're potentially losing Trey Smith. So he can play pretty much anywhere on the offensive line. I like that pick. And then to round up the 32nd pick in the draft with the Philadelphia Eagles, you have the likes of Nakobe Dean, who could be a free agent. You're losing Darius Slay, who's probably retiring. I like what they have there. I think there's a lot of options that they could go. They could go get more cornerbacks to get another head. You're losing Brandon Graham on the defensive end, but you invested in the defensive end the last few years. You could be losing Josh Sweat. So what I like here is it's either between JT Tuamali or going out and getting a linebacker in Jahad Campbell. Can play middle linebacker, can play edge rusher. You are losing Nakobe Dean. You kind of missed on Bryce Huff. So I would go, for me personally, I think that you kind of have to look at what you really need. Linebackers is more of a must because Zach Bond, again, he's a free agent. He had a tremendous season. I don't know if you have the money to bring him back. You could also look at the offensive line and find maybe replacements for the future of Lane Johnson, who's getting older. I'm finding that replacement for Jordan Mailata. How many more years does he have? But inevitably, I think you go Jahan Campbell, who pretty much can be that kind of savior for the middle linebacker feature if you don't bring back Nakobe Dean. So this was my first mock draft. I'm Skelt. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully after probably closer to the combine, we'll have 2 coming out maybe, and then during pro days we'll have another one. So definitely stay on the lookout for these. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what you think that your team should do. Go like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. Let me know what you guys think. I hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.